Welcome to Notes from the Underground with your host, Deborah Jane East, and commentaries by myself, Derek Tyler. Nothing is really as it seems these days. In order to get to the bottom line, you have to go underground, where men and women search for answers, risking their lives to bring you the truth.
Welcome to Notes from the Underground. This is your host, Deborah Jane East. Tonight, I have an interview with someone who is not about money, but instead wants to leave a legacy of genuine truth and insight to an event that happened on November 5th, 1975 in Snowflake, Arizona. Logger Travis Walton and his co-workers, Mike Rogers, Alan Dallas, David Greg Hayes, and Bobby Codgill, were all driving home from work. The men came across an unidentified flying object. Curious to know more, Travis Walton got out of the truck and he was struck by a bright beam of light from an object and sent flying several feet backwards as if he was pushed by some kind of unseen force. In 1993, the movie came out, Fire in the Sky, based on Travis Walton's book. It's been close to 45 years since that happened, and the youngest of the loggers, Steve Pierce, is here with me to clear up some facts which he says are not accurate that concern him in the book. Steve Pierce is refreshingly old school, a stickler for the real facts, and I am pleased to call him my friend. Welcome to the show, Steve. It's so nice to have you with us this evening on Notes from the Underground. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Well, I've been a friend on Facebook for quite a while. As a host and everything, I really admire people who are not afraid to come out and speak their mind about stuff. And I've been following your comments and everything for, I guess, the past couple of years. I've did other interviews with you and everything. So what I want to talk about, everybody knows the story, about the movie, The Fire in the Sky. What I want to talk about, things that the public does not know that go on behind the scenes. We're going to be talking about poetic license that sometimes Hollywood takes. We're going to be talking about content, which is really a valuable thing these days. I see this with a lot of the older stories. The content, they show up at conferences and places and they talk about their story, but then after a while, sometimes things change and you begin to wonder, what really is the truth? That is what I am concerned with, because I found out in other stories of abduction that over the years things will change, and that's what I am really interested in bringing out. So first of all, I just want to ask you, what have you been up to lately? I know that you have retired from your job, I think. Is that correct? Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm disabled. I broke my neck a few years ago, and I tried to work for a couple of years, and it was really starting to bother me. My neck is broken, and I have a hard time seeing on the right side, so it was better off to quit before I killed somebody. And since I was already, disabled, it was easy, just to go back on disability.
Well, it's difficult to do things when you have pain because, I myself have an injury from getting thrown by a horse, of all things. And it's really hard to concentrate on work. And I know you're like me. You've worked hard for your whole life. And, I felt bad at first. I thought, man, I really want to work and do this. But then after a while, after you get used to being your own person, so to speak, and dictating your own life, I've actually come to like it quite well. So I'm sure it's an adjustment for you. But I'm also grateful because I've noticed that you've had more time to come out and talk about things. I know that in the past, I've heard you say that there's a lot of issues about the movie that you had some issues with. And after reading...
No, it's the book.
The book that was based on the movie, yes.
Travis's book.
Yeah, his book, the thing about it is the book and the movie are two different things. Is that correct?
Yes.
And one of the things that I found out about is that the film was only loosely based on the book, that Hollywood took a lot of poetic license with it. And one of the things that the actual abduction scenes had no resemblance to anything that Walton claims. And at the end, for instance, one of the things that he said that he flew a ship, which was not portrayed in the film. Yes, that's what it says. Yes.
That's a new one on me. I haven't heard that one yet.
Well, I hadn't either till a couple of days ago, but if you look up in
Well,
Wikipedia,
he's got to make it more interesting. He's got to sell them books.
right, and after a while, if they run out of content, people get tired of listening to you. They sure do. They get tired of the same old spins. And I know that he did a documentary after that, which was totally different. It mostly had conjecture and things like that. Why do you think that people do this? Why do you think that Travis has done it just solely to make more money or to get more invitation to conferences? What's your spin on that?
I don't really know. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and put him down or nothing because,
Right. And this is nothing against him. We're just trying to analyze what's going on.
Well, my big beef is the book. He said some things in the book that I've been trying to prove for years that wasn't true. And then when Paranormal Witness came out, proved that I was right. And John's told him that few things, John Gillette, he was with me when we saw the UFO. He said a few things that told Travis that the book that he wrote about us isn't true. So it's the book that, Hollywood, there ain't much, you can do about it. Once they get a script, they can do what they want with it, and, so, but it was important for me to prove to my kids that this really happened the way I said it happened instead of the book, because my kids have the books. They read everything that Travis has ever wrote. I've got 2 daughters that are really into this, and they have read the whole books. So it was important for me to prove to my kids that what I said was true than what Travis said about me in the book.
Well, let's go over some of the things that you find an issue with. Let's do it in order of how much it bugs you. What is the main thing about the book that really bothers you the most? And then we'll talk about some of the other things.
The things about me in the book. Mike Rogers told him that the day of the polygraph test that we drew straws, and it's in the book. I can show it to you. And I told Travis we didn't draw straws. They came after me and they wanted me because I was the youngest. Oh no, that's not true. Mike said this. Well, when Paranormal Witness came out on the Sci-Fi Channel, if you guys are going to watch something, this is the closest to the truth there is
How did they find that? How did they find that to watch it? Where is it at, on YouTube or where?
It's episode, season 2, episode 9, Paranormal Witness, the Sci-Fi Channel. If you have Sci-Fi Channel, you can find it. Or just go on Travis's thing, and he has it posted there, and it's on my wall if you want to go down and share it to somebody. And
for the audience, just so everybody knows, your character was played by Henry Thomas in the film, just in case anybody
Henry Thomas. Henry Thomas is the little boy who plays E.T.
He's one of my favorite actors. I like him.
I like him too.
You were talking about the drawing straws and that it was in the book, but that didn't happen. And have you addressed that?
I told Travis this didn't happen. I came out in 2009, 2010, and because I broke my neck and things were, so I was just home with my daughter, and we watched this, and I told her, it didn't happen this way. And then when Travis entered the book, I was telling him, well, this part in this book isn't true either, and then the guy that gave us the polygraph test in 75 even came out and said the reason we took me first was because I was the youngest and I would crack. And I tried to tell Travis that, and he didn't believe me, he believed Mike. And then it says that I was crying and praying at the same time, and, in the book. That's not true. John Gillette will tell you that's not true. The only person that actually totally lost it was Mike Rogers. He fell to the ground and totally lost it because he left his buddy behind. He took off and left him. People say we took off and left him. We did not take off and left him. Mike Rogers took off and left him.
You're correct. I mean, he was the one that did that. He was driving. Yeah. Y'all couldn't pick anything.
Yeah, and then it shows in the movie that Mike went back by himself. That's not true. We all got back in that truck and we all went back looking. It's just that since I've came out in 2000. Well, I knew the movie in 1993. I was in a truck stop getting fuel, and I walking into the TV room after, and I was seeing if everybody was going to drive for the rest of the night. And there was Travis on HBO talking about the movie. And that's when I knew they made a movie. Well, I didn't watch it until 2009 or 2010. And I was trying to tell my daughter this is not true. And then the book came, and my wife Stevie's mom, my ex-wife, was reading this book, and she says, it says all this says, and you said you did this and that, and I said, I did. Well, the book is saying one thing, and you're saying another, and so it was important for me to prove, and I proved it. If you watch Paranormal Witness and read his book, you'll see that the guy that gave the polygraph test is saying what I said before Paranormal Witness came out, what I was telling Travis. And then if you ask John Gillette, and John Gillette was there, so it was important for me to prove to my kids what I said was true.
I call that integrity.
Well, it's important for me for my kids. That was important, and I proved it. So
the thing that sort of bothers me most about the whole situation is it wasn't just Travis's story. All of y'all were there. It's all of your stories.
I got an email once from Travis saying, it's about me, not you.
Sort of a little egotistical there. Wow. Well, I have noticed that sometimes that happens in cases where they, the person who considers themselves the main victim or whatever, that they sort of try to take the center show, and everybody else's account really doesn't matter to them, and they take poetic license, to do things. And that certainly seems like, that could have happened. Besides those two things, what are some other instances that came up in the book that you have fought with? Because I know there's several things. Huh? There's several things.
There's a couple other things, but I really don't want to get into that.
Well, I know that you I know for a while.
Because it has nothing to do with me.
Right. It's with other things. Well, I do remember this, and this really stuck with me a whole lot. The scriptwriter, which was Tracy Torme,
yeah,
he had reported that executives found Walton's account boring. And so, yeah. And so I don't know if he changed the script to make it.
If he would have stuck to the true story of it and talked to everybody that what happened before Fire in the Sky was even made, it would have made a better movie.
Well, I think so, because,
he leaves everybody out. It's all about Mike and being a hero. Mike was no hero. Mike's freaked out more than anybody there. I'm 17 years old. The guy next to me just came back from Vietnam, right? All these people in front of me are grown-ups, and they totally losing it. And they wonder why I'm sitting there looking freaked out. Hell, you're losing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, tell me, I know that, when I read the book years ago, and I don't remember everything, but I do remember there were parts of it that sort of puzzled me, and this is just your opinion. I really had some issues with, if someone is found and they're naked and they've suffered extreme trauma and they're confused and dehydrated.
I don't believe he was naked.
That's one of the things I was going to ask you. Yeah, they said he was found naked.
I think it shows that Mike went after him. That's not true. He called his brother, and his brother didn't realize who he was, and they said something about how brothers can tell each other by saying something what happened to them when they were younger, and he realized it was Travis, and he went and got him in Heber at the phone booth, and then picked him up and took him to Phoenix, and everybody else thought he was in Tucson for some reason, because when I got home that night on the 11th, they were telling me that, my mom was telling me that Travis is back, but he was in Tucson. Well, actually, he was at his brother's house. And then Gillespie knew that Travis was back, because back then we didn't have cell phones. You had, pay phones, and the operator had to hook you up. So the operator heard the whole conversation and called, the sheriff department.
Well, the thing about him saying or them betraying that he was found naked, if he had clothing on, they would use that for evidence, and they would check everything supposedly.
I don't know what they checked. I wasn't there. I can
Mm-hmm.
only go from the time that I saw Travis get zapped by a UFO, until the time I saw him next. And what in between there, I can't tell you one way or the other. I wasn't there. And people ask me that all the time, Well, I
Right.
can't answer that,
Right. Well, even though that was in the 90s, they still had a lot of research that they could do if they found someone that went through such a horrific event like he went through. I mean,
in the movie.
in the movie, yeah, they said, when they say someone's incoherent, it means that, they don't really know what happened. So, that was a little bit confusing, to me when I read that.
I can tell you this. I did see Travis get zapped by a UFO.
Right. But he wasn't took up to the UFO. He was zapped and knocked backwards, correct?
Out to the ground.
Right.
And then when I said they got him, Mike took off and left him.
Right.
And then from the time we got back, I'm not even sure we were at the same place when we came back because it was dark. But anyway, time we got back and looking for him, we couldn't find him. But
how long did you see him on the ground? Did Mike leave immediately when he saw Travis knocked to the ground?
As soon as I said they got him, Mike was gone.
Oh, okay.
He was gone. He was running over everything in pine trees and everything.
Wow. How far above the ground was the UFO when you looked at it?
Well, you could see the pine trees on the side of it.
Okay.
So, they was below the pine trees. And so however tall pine trees get, so take it from there.
Well, I know this had to have affected you a lot. I mean, I experienced seeing a UFO at 12 years old with all of my family, my parents and my sisters and everything. And it's a marker in time for you. Like when I think of my childhood, there's a part of my mind that goes back to 12 years old. And I think about the shock. I mean, you must have been feeling all these things. It's like it's a surreal moment. And especially at your age, I mean, this had to have been like a kick in the gut seeing something like this. It was for me.
Well, my mind just went blank when I saw it. It was just like it was beautiful. It was, then people ask me, well, maybe they tricked you into seeing something, I've thought about that for years and years and years. And I don't know, me and John and we'll stick together no matter what. I mean, we can't say what Travis did is true, but we don't call him a liar either because we don't know,
Right.
And
I understand what you're interested in is you want everyone to know that things weren't exactly like they have been portrayed. And, if it was me, I would feel the same way because I know that Travis experienced, I'm sure, many, many years. He's probably still going through it on some level, the shock, PTSD, all that kind of stuff. But you went through that too. Can you tell us how it affected you in those weeks and days, months afterwards that you experienced, that sighting?
Well, after Travis is back, it turned into a big joke. Everybody just laughed at us, so it was kind of embarrassing to even talk about it for a long time.
Yeah, I tried to get my parents to call the police, and my dad said, "Why would I do that? They'll just laugh." And you experienced a lot of stuff. I mean, they even were accusing y'all of murder, and that in itself is a scary thing, let alone what you experienced. I mean, how did you deal with that?
Oh man, I tell you what, that was one of the worst 5 days of my life, man. There was a city cop named Flake, and we lived in a Mormon town. Snows and the Flakes came down from Brigham Young back in the cowboy days, and they send the Flakes and the Snows down there to name the, to make this town up, and they called it Snowflake. That's how they get their name, is because the Snows and the Flakes. It ain't has nothing to do with about in the mountains there's snow or nothing. It's the name. Well, the Flakes, they ran the town in the 70s, and they owned the town. They were the cops, the judges, and everything else. And they kept hounding me. And, oh, we don't need a body, to convict you for murder. And we know you didn't do it, but we know either John did it or Alan Dallas did it. And you're just as guilty for not saying anything. So we can get you for murder too, So for 5 days there, when we took the polygraph test, I thought that was the more scarier than seeing Travis get zapped.
It's very nerve-wracking, isn't it? Because I'm a retired social worker, and I actually sat in on a polygraph test one time. It's very intimidating.
Well, when you walk in there, you're 17 years old, and you get to the courthouse, and there's thousands of people out there with cameras and everything else, and it just kind of makes your mind, and then you hear Alan Dallas's mother all week saying, they're gonna frame you. They're gonna frame you. They're gonna set you guys up with this polygraph test, make you guys look guilty, And so when they put us in there, there's only it was the 6 of us, plus my mom and the cops, and the guy that took the polygraph test in there, all at one time. My mom had to be in there because I was a minor. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do this without my mom being in there. The rest of their moms weren't allowed in there, because they were all of age, and I don't know. I think I put my mom through a lot.
I can imagine, because I know how moms are. They worry. Were you still in school? No, or you were already out of school, correct?
Yeah. I quit school to go to work.
Okay.
And we needed the money, so I didn't want to go to school anyway. And my mom said I had to go to work, and my uncle and cousin had this job working for Mike, and they both quit the week before because Mike wasn't paying, and so they quit because winter was coming and they could chop wood because they had their own chainsaws. And I asked my mom if I could quit, and she said no, Mike will pay. So I had this, I couldn't quit. My mom wouldn't let me.
Tell me, how far away did you live from the site where you experienced everything?
You mean from where I lived to?
Yeah, from where you lived to the place where you saw the UFO.
Okay, Snowflake and Heber, I think it's like 30 miles, maybe 40 miles. Then once you get to Heber, once you get on the dirt there, you go exactly 8 miles and you'll be at the spot. Just remember, go 8 miles and stay to the left. Every turn you get to, go to the left and you'll be there.
Oh, wow. Well, did you know?
Travis didn't want me to give directions, but he lets his other people up there. So,
Well, there's no reason to really keep it private anymore. I mean, that's been, since the 90s.
Yeah.
And he doesn't own the property, so
no.
I don't know why he would be so territorial about that, but
he's Travis Walton.
He's Travis Walton. Well, tell me, had you ever heard any reports of UFOs in the area before that experience, or had you ever saw a UFO before?
I really didn't know they were UFOs, but where I lived, that summer before this happened, I lived outside of Snowflake, and we had no electricity out there. And my grandparents lived out there. My aunt and uncle was like, our whole family. There's a couple of 3 houses out there, and all like it was like a community of the Pierces, And there was this ridge at nighttime because there's no electricity out there. So when it got dark, it was dark, and there was like a mountain on the side of us, and you could see this white glow flying around, and there was no road up there or nothing. But we never thought it was a UFO, because we really didn't know what it was because, before this happened, I didn't really even believe in UFOs.
And that's a common thing with, you know, a lot of people. I mean, until we saw one, me and my family didn't believe in them. It was just something that you saw on the Twilight Zone. You know, they had some things about aliens and stuff, or, you know, later there was Star Trek and all the different things, but that wasn't normally something people, you know, believed in. And a lot of people still don't today.
Well, you know, a lot of people get in this on their own free will because they want to get into it, you know.
Yeah.
We didn't get into it our own. We were drug into it.
You didn't ask
We,
for it.
yes, you know, they drug us into it. We had no choice, you know, because they thought we killed Travis, and then the whole world knew about it in 24 hours. The whole world knew about it. I don't know how it got so quick around the world, but there was people coming from all over the place just to see if, you know, to see this.
How long did they hound you for stories about this? Were you pursued for a while, or I mean, did it eventually fade out? I mean, I know that you get quite a few questions about the experiences and stuff now.
Well, Philip Class, I got married the following February because I turned 18. My mom wouldn't sign for me, and we moved to Taylor. Taylor is next to Snowflake, and I was me and the wife was home one night, and a cop came to the door. His name is Jim Click, and where we lived, it was a dirt road, and you could see cops coming down the road, anybody coming down the road. And the wife says, Jim Click's coming down the road. Are you guilty? I mean, she says, what did you do this time? What are you guilty of this time? You know? Well, she made a joke about it. But anyway, he told me that that Philip Class had called him and told him that he would give me $10,000 to see if it was a hoax, you know. And I just blew it off. I didn't really think anything of it. And then I moved back to Texas, where I was born, and he got a hold of me on the phone because, you know, back then you could get a phone, it's easy to find you because you have a home phone. And he kept calling me and telling me he'd give me all this money. And but he's the only one that really hounded me. He hounded me for like 3 years until I completely disappeared for a while.
Wow. Were you hounded by military or by the deep state or whatever, you know, people refer to them as?
There was a couple of people I didn't know who they were. I couldn't tell you if they were military or not. I didn't know who they were. But yeah, for a while I was followed, and but within the first 5 days, the only people who really hassled me was the cops, you know. So, but after that, I got followed a few times. I've been followed now, like when I come into a radio show or something. I don't know, some reason somebody doesn't like me coming on a radio show for some reason.
Well, I want to ask you, do you think, was there any possibility that when y'all experienced, you know, seeing Travis get zapped and everything, I know you said that, you know, y'all was out of there just like instantly. Have you ever had any flashbacks that you were abducted at that time?
No, I don't believe none of us were abducted because I believe this was mind controlled. I believe Travis was the weakest link. He's the only one that could get out of the truck. You know, he plays like he was John Wayne, and he runs underneath it and does a Watusi and do the twist, you know. None of that happened. No.
Yeah.
And I believe they made Mike turn off the motor. You know, and even in the book it says they left the motor running. And I was on Mike's show a while back, and he even said they even turned it off. So, you know, it just makes you mad because they just won't tell the truth, what really happened, and everybody wants their little glory into it so they can make $1 out of it. And I have never made any money out of this. If you call, I went to New Mexico, you know, because every year they have their thing down there because Roswell, and he gave me $100 in a motel room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did one in New Jersey with David Sinnett, and they gave me a motel room and $300. I mean, $300 is the most I've ever made at one time. And a
Right.
lot of these places won't even, they give me, I had to hitchhike to one conference just to get there, so I stopped going. I mean, everybody thinks you make a lot of money doing this.
It's not true. Well, unless you're some of the big,
Guess you're Travis Walton.
or some of the big names that,
Guess you got a book to sell.
right. I mean, we went to Contact in the Desert, and barely, well, actually, we didn't even receive total compensation for what it cost us. I know my fiance, Derek Tyler, he's read a couple of books, and they reimbursed him they gave him a plane ticket, but, I had to pay for mine, and we had to get a room. I mean,
But I didn't get into this for the money. I got
yeah,
in it so the people would know this actually happened, you know?
right. And
Um,
I think that's a good way to tell about sincerity. I mean, I also heard one of the promoters being asked, well, why didn't y'all get this guy to come? And she said, because we can't afford him. And these conferences for the majority, I mean, not all of them, but the bigger ones, they make lots of money. Contact
it's bigger.
makes
Yeah,
millions
and
of
some of these guys
dollars.
can't even pass a polygraph test, and they're out there doing conferences.
Well, and the thing that really bugs me, Steve, is most of them, the big names, what I call the big names, they're not even abductees. They haven't even experienced any of this.
I
They're
know
mostly,
there's quite a few people in the last 10 years since I came out of the closet, um, uh, that try to use me for their gain, you
right.
know. And I don't know. I think that's wrong.
I think it is too. And I know some of the big researchers. Recently, I had a friend who's over in the UK that has written some very well received books. And he was contacted by one of these headliners, and they came to his room. I mean, they were all at a conference together. And, she was interested in his content and picked up his books. She didn't even pay for them, even though she was a millionaire, and just, was trying to persuade him to change some of his content to be aligned with some of her research. And he said no. And I'm sorry, but I find that happens quite a bit. That's why I
Yeah.
said content. That's what they're out there looking for. But a lot of this is just part of disinformation that is put out by willing people, not just, the black ops or the military, but some of it is put out there willingly for their own personal gain. And that's what I really want to speak out about, and why I was so interested in having you on the show, because I think it's important. You're trying to show integrity with what happened, and to be sure that your side is recorded down for posterity is what really took place. And
Hmm.
that's important to me, as a human being. And so that's why I was so interested in getting your version of the truth. What happened to you? Because it's just as important to me as Travis, or any of the
I can
guys.
prove what happened to me more than Travis and Mike and them. They can have, they can prove what happened to them.
Well, that speaks well for you. I mean, it does. And
I can prove what I say.
right, right. And I think that's
Um,
important. I wish the social media would require more of some of these top names instead of just accepting everything carte blanche. You know what I mean?
mhm. I don't
And
mind doing this for free, as long as they pay me to get there and pay for my motel room and feed
right,
me while I'm
right.
there. It's not
But
about the money. It's
but
about the people believing this really happened. And I'm not saying this was a spaceship and little green men came out.
right.
You know, Travis did get zapped by a UFO. I've never said I saw a spaceship. Uh, my last wife started a book, and we got into a fight over it because she kept saying, "Well, say spaceship," you know. And, nah, I ain't saying spaceship. I can't pass a polygraph saying spaceship. I passed a polygraph saying UFO. You know,
Right.
I watch what I say. Ever since I've taken that polygraph test, I've seen the world change so much since the '70s. you know, uh, and you have to watch what you say, you know, because who knows, someone's going to pop up and say, hey, if I pay for this polygraph test, will you take it?
Right.
So you have to be very careful what you say and what you don't say, because to me, passing a polygraph test is saying something.
Well, it is. It says a whole lot because, I mean, honestly, it's admissible in a court of law. And the chances that the polygraph is, if it says that you're telling the truth, I mean, they're going to have to do a whole lot to prove that you're lying, And I
That's right.
understand that some of the other members took polygraph tests and failed. Is that correct?
No, nobody's failed.
Okay. I had read that.
Now, wait a minute. Now, when the day this happened, we took the polygraph test. Alan Dallas ripped his off because they kept asking him, "Did you kill Travis? Did you kill Travis? What are you trying to do? Frame me here?" So he thought they were trying to frame him. So he refused to take it. He ripped everything off. Said, "I ain't taking this." But the other 5 took it, and we all passed it. And then years later, when the movie came out, Alan did take a polygraph test from the same guy that gave it to us and passed it. Now,
Wow.
I hear Travis was on a TV show.
That's what I heard, yes.
And flunked one.
Yeah.
But that was his dumbass fault for going on a TV show.
Right. And that's what I had heard. So, and I don't know how many years it had been since the event, but I mean, the main part of what I experienced, I remember, all of the details. It's like burned into your brain. But yeah, there's been a lot of disinformation out about, what happened, I think. And it's sort of grown over the years. But the people that have remained true to their words stand out like a sore thumb. And you've never really ever said anything different than what you're saying right now.
No, I've always said the same thing.
Well, I really appreciate that. And that's what I think, true investigative reporting is hearing all sides of the story, not just the ones who are out there in the limelight and, talking at some of the big conferences. We've heard those stories. It's the same old story. It's the sides
and then,
like
and
you're
then,
telling.
Then you got these guys that write a book and never done anything.
Right.
That's what cracks me up. I wrote this book, so I'm an expert at it.
Right. And I'm sorry that's not true. I'm sorry that's not true. That doesn't make anybody an expert. Wow. And I see recently someone wrote a book about the ranch that they lived on, and they wrote all these incidents and things like that and posted pictures, and they would say, this is an alien, this is an entity, this is a UFO. It was only a photograph. There's no proof it was anything. There's no proof that this was an entity. It's just not there.
99% stuff is out there.
Right. Oh yeah, you're exactly right. And some of them make bukus of money, don't they?
Yeah, that's sad. Because they're in it for the money.
Right. I have honestly never made a penny. I fund everything myself. I pay for all my radio show stuff myself.
I don't make anything.
Right.
People ask me, don't you make money going on these radio shows? Yeah, right.
It's like pulling teeth to get your plane travel or get, and if you get a meal out of them, wow, that's really something. Yeah. But I tell you, this time has flew by fast, but you know what? You don't
It's about them. That's what makes me mad. These guys are doing these conferences. They want to look good, but they don't want to know the truth. They want to bring in people. They want you to tell things that that's going to bring the people in.
I'm not out there for the glamour from Hollywood about everything that's happened, because we all know that that's embellished. Just like that script writer said, well, his account was boring, so we had to change some of it. But you know what? He had to go along with that. They couldn't make a movie without him approving of the final stuff. I don't care how much money they paid me. I don't want to embellish the truth, because there's enough lying out there as there is.
That's right. That's why a lot of people don't believe us, because like my family, y'all change the story so many times. What story is true? You know, I said, I didn't ever change the story, you know. And my story, what I've been telling for the last 40 something years is starting to prove that I was right and they were wrong, you
Well,
know.
I'll have to totally agree with you. And that's why I've always followed what you say and everything, because, you know, you've been consistent. You haven't changed your content. You, when I look at you empathically, I see, I see pain at what you've had to experience. It's been devastating, you know, on your life growing up as a teen and your family. And even now, I can tell that these things really
Well,
bother
to me,
you.
it's important that your kids believe you
Yeah, because that's your
100%.
legacy as a
Yes,
parent. Oh wow,
yes.
I so commend you for even being willing to do these shows, because I know it's not fun. You know, it's really not. But
Well, I
like
turned
me, you
two of
want
them
the
down.
truth out there.
I was supposed to do one the other night, and they got me on camera, and they tricked me, and they had a bunch of other people on there, and I just said, no, I'm not doing it. Goodbye.
Don't blame you. You know what? There's not a lot of men that stand up like that. And if anybody's out there and they want to see the truth, they ought to look for integrity, because
And I was
that's
on
what I look
another
for.
guy's show a while back, and I like this guy, you know, but he was just trying to get me to say that Travis is nothing but, you know, wanted me to call him names and stuff. I'm not gonna. I'll make jokes about Travis, you know. Jokes are one
Right.
thing, but I'm not gonna put his family down. I'm not
No.
gonna put, you know, that's not right. I mean, his kids and my kids have nothing to do with this. Mike's kids have nothing to do with this. It's between me, uh, and Mike and Travis, you know. So if
Well,
you people want me to come on your show to put Travis down, I'm not going to do it,
well,
you know.
and right. And, you know, it's the same thing for myself. You know, as far as I know, you know, he's a good person. I've never heard anything, you know, negative, like he's hateful or anything like that. But, you know,
Stuck up maybe.
yeah. Well, we all have our issues. I have my issues,
I
you
am
know.
Travis. I'm a wow.
Right. But you know what? We are all human beings, and none of us are no more important than the other one. I mean, honestly, I know,
Yeah.
you know, people would beg to differ with me, because, you know, I'm not a big time radio show person, but
But
I
you're a
don't.
good person, and I believe your story.
Right, right. And I've always looked for truth, because what am I leaving behind if I go along with social media and people that are calling bullshit? I'm no better than them. And so I don't care if people call me crazy when I tell my story, because I'm a Southern girl. They say we're crazy anyhow. So I don't really care, Steve. And
I heard that.
that's what I like about you. I like that. You have a lot of integrity, and you have a good heart. I can tell that you do.
Thank you.
You know, when I first started noticing you, is I think your wife had passed away. I've
Hmm.
never seen anybody. There was so much love, and you just really, it melted my heart to see how much you loved her. And I just felt you had, I thought, wow, I just got chills when I thought about I'd heard some of the things you were telling. I thought, well, this guy is saying some different things, and it's not going along with the majority, but it was so compelling.
I can prove
And
what I say.
right.
I
And
even
not a
got.
lot of them can say that either, can they?
No, they can't.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Steve. I hope that you will continue to tell your legacy, and that it will be preserved so that your children can know that they had a father who wasn't afraid to speak out and to do what is right. And in the end, isn't that what it's all about?
That's right. Well, thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
having me.
much. You are welcome
Thank
on
you.
my show anytime.
Well, I'm going to pick from now on what shows I go on. I'm not just going to go on anybody's anymore.
Well, I don't blame you. I have a few recommendations of people that I trust that have a lot of desire to get the truth out there, and I'll send them to you, because I want your story to be out there too. And
All right.
it's not about, you
Money.
know, it's not about money. It never has been. And you know what?
Uh-uh.
Being the real deal is everything. So thank you again, Steve. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Notes from the Underground with your host, Deborah Jane East. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook.